My name is Vish. I represent a company called Revyz. But before I get into the presentation, maybe a show of hands, or maybe one of you can answer. What is the name of the F1 team that Atlassian has recently sponsored? Williams. Okay, great. A lot of people know about that. Maybe somebody could tell me what are the names of the two drivers for the Williams team? Wow. That was good. Maybe you have my next slide already covered. Do you know how they did in the last race, which was last Sunday? Yeah, you're a F1 fan out here. All right. Okay, so that's exactly what happened. So they came in 5 and 8. I think let's highlight them. And as you can see, the difference between 7 and 8 is a couple of hundreds of milliseconds, not even a second, right? So what I want to talk to you today about is how do F1 teams manage their risks and how that might be applying to you, those people who manage your Atlassian cloud environment, or maybe in more broader terms, your IT infrastructure within your company. So that's what I'm going to be talking about, risk management. And I think what it really boils down to is whether it is F1 or enterprise IT, it really comes down to planning, precision planning, preparation, and having a good view of what your risks are and managing them. Of course, there are a lot of things which are unknown, but you prepare for all the things which you know. All right. So again, drawing out similarities or things similar between enterprise IT teams and F1 teams. Does anybody know out here how much is the maximum amount of money each team can spend in a given year? The money changes in an F1 race. Maybe uh, okay. So every year it changes. This year, each team can spend 140.5 million. Next year, I think it's going to be a little bit higher from what I read through. So there are two awards in the F1 racing. Of course, one of them is the best driver or the second best driver, however you want to call it. And then the second award goes to the team. And there are how many teams? Anybody knows? I think you 10 teams. So among the 10 teams, the winner gets, I think, roughly about 250 million. That's the overall prize money which is given away every year, right? And they spend about this year, each team is spending about 140 million to do the 20 odd races. So every week there's almost a race, right? I think the next, this weekend there's a Monaco race, which is supposed to be the toughest circuit. But just coming back to this, just like F1 teams spend a lot of money to get that small edge. It could be milliseconds, as we saw. The 7th and 8th place was very close. Enterprise IT teams use, again, in the context of what we are talking about today, which is Atlassian Cloud. Your Atlassian Cloud infrastructure is supporting critical infrastructure or business operations for your company. So how do you make sure that things are running smoothly? Obviously, meticulous planning, adapting to changes as new requirements come in, you adapt to that. And of course, doing some risk management to go through that process. I should have maybe waited for before going on to this slide, but what I was going to be asking you was, does any of you know Juan Manuel Fangio? I didn't know till I started reading about F1. He's the one who won 5 world championships. Now, one could argue back then there was not much of technology compared to today, but maybe at that point of time, the technology for cars was probably at the highest point. Again, it's all relative how you look at it. Now, if you compare how things have changed, today, all these F1 car racing teams, they depend on a lot of data. There's a lot of sensors, they collect a lot of data, and then they make their decisions based on the data which they've collected. Now, if you try to draw an analogy with where IT teams today are, there's a lot of automation which is coming in. Today, we heard a lot about Rovo. how that can automate things, how it can make processes go much faster, and so on. What is the playbook which F1 teams adopt? Again, pretty broad and generic, I would say. Most of their decisions are based on data. They collect terabytes of data after each race. They analyze the data. There is a lot of tuning which goes on. There's a whole crew which sits at the track, right besides the track, where there's real-time data which is streaming in, and they make adjustments on the fly. Imagine, a track which is pretty dry and it starts raining. The power generated by the engines, the type of tires, a lot of those parameters have to change for getting the most optimal performance. So there is real-time decision making which is occurring based on what is happening in the environment. They also do a lot of testing. They spend, I don't know, thousands of hours testing out those vehicles in wind tunnels. And of course, the software is simulated as much as you can before you actually put that into real life use. And then one of the other things which they do very well is version control. Now, you must be thinking, how do they take these cars every week or every 2 weeks? They're in different countries. It's not like it's the same car. It is the same version of that car, which is assembled and taken to a different race, to a different city every week or every 2 weeks. So it's a big operation which goes on. Now, how do they manage that uniformity or that consistency? That is because they track a lot of these things. They keep different versions of all the changes which they're doing. So that's a very important aspect in this case. And then, of course, after every race, just like I think a lot of you all are used to, they hold retros. They understand what went well, what did not go well, and how can they improve. So again, one could argue that this is a simplistic playbook which you have, but it is pretty complicated once you get into the details. So now let's talk about some of the challenges which some of you might be seeing on the Atlassian cloud front. Maybe a show of hands, how many of you all are in cloud today? Okay, more than half the room. And maybe some of you all who are on data center are in the process of migrating to the cloud. So maybe some things to be aware of. Another question for maybe a show of hands, how many of you all are on Jira Premium or higher? Okay, some of you all. How do you do your sandbox to production work? Is it automated or is it manual? I know I spoke to you all earlier this morning. I can understand your pain. It's no secret. It is done manually. So you make changes in your, you develop a new project, whatever workflows, screens, you do all of that in your sandbox, you test it out, and then you have to redo that whole thing in production again, right? And I think, sorry, go ahead. We'll come to that. Of course, you have an app for everything.
What was that, Vish?
The comment was, you have an app for that. And I said, yes, of course, there's an app for everything out here nowadays. But I think just highlighting the problems, right, which is configuration management is a challenge. Data vulnerabilities, what I mean by that is there are different ways data can be destroyed, whether it is somebody does it intentionally, somebody does it accidentally, the account takeovers. There are many ways where data residing in the cloud can be destroyed. And that is something for everybody to consider, how to protect your own data. In fact, maybe another question to the audience out here, do you know who's responsible for your data in your cloud instance? Is it you, or is it Atlassian, or is it some third party? You. So you're responsible for looking at the policies which you apply. That's the shared responsibility model, and this is true not just with Atlassian, it is true with whether it is Salesforce, any SaaS service which is out there, you're essentially responsible for your cloud data. Unless the SaaS vendor goes and messes up something, which I think some of you all might recall again, in context of Atlassian, 2022, April of 2022, there was a big outage. In that scenario, it was Atlassian who was responsible for it, and so they, I think, recovered back most of the sites which had that accident. And then I think we've kind of touched upon it. There are the challenges. One of the challenges which you have is there is limited native tools which are there within the ecosystem at this point of time, which will help you manage some of these capabilities. So the fastest time for a changeover or stopover in the pits for an F1 is 1.9 seconds. Can somebody tell me what the average is? You're pretty close. According to Google, it's 2.5 seconds. So what happens in 2.5 seconds? The car comes in, the 4 tires are changed, it's been refueled, maybe some new part has been added into. So imagine, in the next two words I'm going to be saying, the car has come in, 4 tires have been changed, and it's already out. So how do they do that? So this is where the entire crew, which consists of more than 20 people, they're working in synchronization. They have tools in place which help them do this quick changeover, and the car is off to the races. So this is where Revyz comes in. We become your pit crew in the back end for all the administrators in the room to help you manage some of these tasks which are there, moving things from your sandbox to production, understanding what has been the drift in your configuration, maybe recovering things which have been deleted in a very granular manner. So that's where we come in. So the next few slides, I'm just going to walk you through some of the things which we do. We help Atlassian cloud customers with 3 things, broadly speaking. There are a lot of features and capabilities which we offer, but there are 3 things which we help solve for. One is configuration management. I've already touched upon this, wherein we can help you move your configuration in a very precise manner, whether it is one workflow, whether it's an entire project, or if it is just a screen which you have developed, which you want to move from your sandbox to your production site. We can help you automate that. It's not just only from sandbox to production, but it can be from any cloud site to any other cloud site. It can be done in a very secure manner. Now, of course, what are the business risks out here? I think Faith was talking about the DORA compliance earlier this morning. Imagine not having an audit trail of all the changes which have been done, right? Understanding who did those changes. So we prepare all the documentation which goes along with the change management ticket which you would have created. Ideally, you should have a change management process, but I can understand a lot of people don't follow that because it is complicated at this point of time. So those are some of the things which we help address, which is automating the changes, creating documentation, having a workflow wherein in some regulated industries, people who make changes in the sandbox can't operate in the production environment, so on and so forth. So there's a process for going about doing those changes. The second part is with regards to your data protection. Now, when the conditions in your F1 track change, when there's any danger to the drivers out there, the 20 drivers who are on the track, what they do is they launch in a safety car. When the safety car comes in, things slow down. Once things recover back, then again the race starts off. So think of what we do as something similar to a safety car, wherein we are helping the administrators automate certain capabilities, which includes your backup. What we offer is immutable air-gapped backups, granular restores with full control, whether you want to restore back one issue, an attachment, maybe just a comment, or if it is multiple issues or multiple projects, we help you recover those back with full visibility and control to you as the admin. Ability to move configuration or data from one site to another site. And of course, we also cover assets. I think a lot of you all are using JSM assets. Moving assets from one site to another site or including the configuration is kind of hard today. So we help you automate that. And of course, Revyz is a SOC 2 compliant organization, so your data is safe. We also offer features wherein you can put your data in your own storage, in your own cloud storage, be it AWS or Azure. The last and third part from a feature set, what we offer is we allow the surgical precision. Like when an F1 car goes into the pits, when it has to be repaired, they don't go rebuild that entire car in 2.5 seconds. You can't do much. So they go and replace things very surgically. Let's say there's a faulty telemetry unit. So just replacing that, putting a new one in. That's exactly what we do. We help you recover back, again, as I said, just an issue, just a Confluence page, maybe just an asset or a workflow, whatever it is, in a very granular manner. The advantage for you for doing that is you don't have any downtime. You don't have to rebuild everything. There's no disruption to your entire system. As I mentioned earlier, the Monaco race track is supposed to be one of the most tough racetracks. It's got about 19 tight corners. And imagine cars going around those 19 corners at 100 miles plus an hour. How do you manage that? And this is a race which is coming up on Sunday. So it'll be exciting to see what happens then. So where we come in is we help you with these advanced configuration management and data protection use cases, whether it is moving a configuration from, if you have a multi-site environment, if you want to keep everything in sync, if you want to understand where is your configuration different in one site versus another site, you have complex configurations, your workflows I've seen workflows having 20 or 30 statuses in one workflow. Imagine the number of the transitions which are going to be there. If you have to rebuild that, it's going to be pretty complex. That's where we help you. So what is the path to, what are the steps which you could be thinking about in being as performant as an F1 team? One of the first things what I would at least recommend is having separate environments where you're testing things out before you put things into production. So think about the F1 race. It's a 3-day race. The first day is just practice. Second day is you're actually doing a trial run. And then the third day is when the actual race occurs. So if you take the same analogy out here, having a sandbox environment, I think in your data center, when you were operating in the data center world, you had a sandbox, you had a UAT, maybe production, or a staging, or maybe multiple environments like that. So try having the same thing. I think with enterprise, at the enterprise tier, you can have multiple sandboxes now, which will allow you to create that type of a setup. Implement a version control system, which allows you to track changes, because you could be making a lot of changes in your configuration, knowing what you changed, what are the differences between these different changes, I think is something important. Test your changes before you actually deploy it. I'm pretty sure you know the answer for this. What would happen if you maybe changed one letter in your status? That's a no-no. Or what happens? Maybe you could tell us why would you not do that? Where does it affect? Everywhere, right? Exactly. So it's a string. That's what is used in your automation rules. It's used in boards, everywhere. Many places. So one small thing can create a big mess. So understanding what is that impact for that is very critical. Deploying a comprehensive backup solution is again important, whether you do it yourself, use it with an app. I think that's something important to consider. And then the last two things being having a way to granularly restore things back, and having a culture of having a risk management process in place in your organization. I think with that, my time is up.
Yeah, just like in F1.
Exactly.
Give it up for Vish.